sweet J, a little aloha in our day. Spread a little aloha around the world at breakfast with Bob.
Thank you, Poncho Man. Welcome back to Breakfast with Bob, our Not Quite Cone edition. My name is Bob Babbitt, brought to you by Master Spas, S Fuels Go Longer, Hoka Let's Fly, the Bora Wetsuits, Premium Plus Sports, and of course, our Challenged Athletes Foundation. Our next guest, I don't know, only one of our favorite people on the planet, ranked number 3 in the world, is having a phenomenal season, joining us from his secret hideout in Italy. Mr. Sam Long joins us. Yo, yo, yo. How you doing, brother?
Yo, 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 what's going on, Bob Babbitt? I'm doing awesome. I've got the salt water in my hair from going for a little evening swim here in the Adriatic Sea and did a nice little, I'm in Italy, so I got to say in kilometers, a nice 170-kilometer ride for the day in the mountains into Slovenia. I didn't see Tade out there, but, I'm going to keep riding and maybe one day I'll see him.
So I'm looking back, I'm going, you know what? I think it's like our 5-year anniversary. I think we first chatted at Nice in like 19 or something, right? That's
it.
So
totally.
Watching where your career has come since 2019 has been pretty phenomenal. I mean, it's funny, even though when we're watching at Miami and these other races, you're coming out of the water like basically right before the boat that's picking up the buoys. But usually when people are swimming like that, they come out of the water and they're fatigued. You're coming out of the water like you're shot out of a cannon. You're like sprinting out of the water, getting on a bike. It's like the swim's not taking anything out of you, but you're not swimming as fast as you probably feel you should.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think it's a few things. I definitely think in these T100 races, they've got 20 people and they've got 15 of the best swimmers in the sport, and so like even this last at London 2 weeks ago, I swam 118 pace per 100 meters. I mean, that's not a bad pace, really.
No.
They swam 110 pace per 100 meters, and they're all together. So the issue gets magnified because they're all working together in a swimming echelon, and sometimes they're working together in a biking echelon as well.
Yeah.
And I'm all out there on my own because in the Ironman races, I'm actually coming out like at Oceanside, I came out in the middle of the pack. At St. George, I came out in the middle of the pack. And so it makes me look really bad, but it is my strategy. I will say, like, I've just discovered if I swim much harder, I don't go much faster, but it makes me really tired. So I just had to say, I'm going to lose another 30 seconds, but I get out of the water feeling like a warm up, feeling ready to go.
So the other thing is, for a long time, coached by Ryan Bolton, and then tried to switch to another coach, and you're coaching yourself now, right?
Yeah, it's been going for, what's it been going? 1.5 years now, coaching myself. I'm always open, I'm always trying to learn new things, open to new knowledge. And I've even sometimes thought, oh, maybe I should get a coach. But then I think, you don't fix what ain't broken. And it's like, I've had my best results ever. So I'm like, until something starts going wrong, like it's just going too well to say, let's change something,
No, yeah, you're flying, and usually what happens, and this goes back, I remember years ago, there was a top duathlon guy, you probably remember, named Kenny Souza, and the guy was dominating the world, and his coach was a guy named David Martin, and the following year, after he had dominated everything, he was not going well. And I said, David, what's going on? And he goes, well, remember, think of it as an energy pie. It's a pizza, all right? Kenny's slices were racing, training, and recovery. Since last year, he got married, he had a baby, he bought a house, he moved to Colorado. The pizza doesn't get bigger, the slices get narrower, right? And so that's why he's fallen off the edge of the earth. You have added to your energy pie, you've added a lot of slices, right? Relationship, baby, not traveling back and forth. And you're going better than you've ever gone in your life. And more importantly, you just seem so confident and happy. It seems like having things to balance makes you a better athlete.
Yeah, totally. I mean, honestly, it's been kind of miraculous. I definitely have some moments where I'm going like, I think back to like 3 years ago, or even heck, 1.5 years ago. And I'm like, the old me was like, okay, recovery means you gotta like be sitting in bed, no one's bothering you, you're not doing anything, you're watching Netflix, you're maybe texting your friends a little bit, and like I need this 5 hours a day, every single day. And if I'm not getting that, then well, I'm not recovering. And now if I get 1 hour of that a week, I'm like, wow, this is my, I actually call it my golden hour. I call it the golden hour. It's the time between Leo goes to bed, which normally at home is he falls asleep at 7:30, and then we go to bed at 8:30. So we get 1 hour of the day, and that's the 1 hour of the day. I put my feet up, I watch TV, I chill. And so sometimes my brain is like, wow, I need that time, but obviously the performance says otherwise. And I think there's an intangible thing about like playing with babies. Sure, I'm on my feet more, but it's like, and I'm walking around with my son, and technically these things aren't as good as lying in bed or whatever. But I actually think it's far greater because you're seeing like the meaning of life, and like it for the brain, it's like this. My son, he smiles at me and he laughs, and it's like, and my life is just so much more full now. And like before, like the race results matter to like my self-esteem and my ego. And like, I don't want to say they don't matter now, but like they don't really matter to like my overall happiness. Like I want to win races because I love to be a competitor and I love to put myself out there, but like I don't need to win races to be happy anymore.
No, and the reality is Leo doesn't give a crap, right? You come back after a tough workout and you're like, oh, I'm bummed about my workout. Leo's just happy to see you. He could care less about your workout, your race. He loves you because you're daddy, and he could care less. And there's something about that that's freeing when you come home from a tough race or tough workout, knowing, okay, this is what really matters. The other stuff, I prepare as much as I can, but I really, the result is the result. And then I'm going to move on. This is forever.
Yeah, exactly. It's forever. And of course, I think it makes you more motivated to get the results, not necessarily because you like want people to message you on social media like, wow, you won, but because like you want to get food on the table. And that's like a powerful thing too. Like, I'm trying to fund my son's college account. I'm trying to do all these things. And so it's like that's now the motivation behind racing and wanting to do well.
Exactly. So when I look through this season, I mean, and until Alcatraz, you're in London, you're like first, second, Oceanside second, Singapore second, you're in winning St. George, just killing it at St. George, and then Alcatraz, which is again, we are talking about a small group, a brutal swim, right? You're talking jumping off a boat in freezing water. And
with sharks.
You were not that, sharks. You were not that far back out of that swim. You were right there.
Yeah, that was like the best swim ever. I was a minute and 10 seconds.
Yeah.
A minute and 10 seconds back. Yeah.
And it's like you're probably swimming for your life. You swim pretty hard when
I was swimming for my life. Let me tell you, that one I said, like, I am not getting left alone in the San Francisco Bay at dawn with the fog everywhere, with no lifeboats, with no buoys. I was like, I don't care what happens. I am getting on that shore as fast as possible.
I remember there was a point this season that I think the old Sam would have done something different. There was a point this season where you were about to go fly over to Europe and do an Ironman, and the old Sam wouldn't have hesitated. You would have got on a plane, you would have gone to Europe, you would have done an Ironman, and might have toasted your season. But the new Sam was like, you know what? Maybe that is not the smartest thing to do.
Totally, yeah. Like it's on one hand, it's an energy conservation game this year, I think, because we've got the most unprecedented year ever. And so actually, if you look at my summer of racing, like I had a huge racing schedule till May, and then in June I had one race, in July I had one race, and in August I have no races. And like I've actually taken kind of like a mini off season here in the summer, which is completely unusual for me. And at times I'm like, why am I not training the house? Like I'm still working hard, but I actually said like I got to have the lull in the summer because we've got the grand final at the end of November, And so for me, it's almost like two seasons in one calendar year. I started hard and now a little break, and then I'm going to end hopefully, really mighty as well.
Well, because then you got Taupo, right, coming up in December, the 70.3.
Yeah, which I'm trying to decide if I'll do that, because then it's like, the thing is, right, like this calendar is going to repeat every year. And so then it's like, what are we going to do the following year? Because then you don't ever get, it's a tricky solution and I think on one hand, it's really tempting to race everything. Obviously I was tempted. I almost flew to Australia and I still have been like, I still really, really wish I was racing Kona this year. But I just getting the qualification, and it was just, I shouldn't say getting it in. I made one qualification attempt and I got third. But the first two guys got the spots. And so I knew I had one shot and I failed. And now I have to live with not being at Kona, even though I'm going to be really fit then, and I'd be ready. But like, I couldn't fit another qualifying race in. And that's just the reality of the schedule.
But it's a great era to be a professional triathlete with the T100 and getting, guaranteed dollars to commit to that. And then the Ironman World Series. It's, just focusing on those two things gives you lots of opportunity, really good dollars, right? Way better dollars than we've ever had. And so, it puts you in a position, we talked about this a few years ago, it almost puts you in a position where you don't have to do a full to make a living as a triathlete, which wasn't the case a number of years ago. You had to be, unless you were seriously one of the top 3 or 4 70.3 athletes, you really couldn't make a living unless you were doing fulls.
Yeah, I would. For me this year, I would argue it's actually that doing a full is counterproductive to me making the best living I can, because I actually want to do a full. You should see it with Laura. Every other week, I'm like, cool, I'm going to do this full. I'm going to sign up for a full because I really want to. And she's like, well, wait a minute. So you're going to go do a full. If you win, you make what, 10, 15 grand, which sounds great. But then you're going to be tired, and then you're going to jeopardize winning $210,000 in the PTO series. Yeah. So like, what are you doing, Sam? And then I'm always like,
yeah. And then all the really long training, right? That
exactly.
Which makes you more susceptible to injuries, and you got to recover and a whole bit. I mean, the risk reward on that type of stuff with these other opportunities, it just makes, it's hard, because I think what have you done, like 15, 16 Ironmans in your
career? Even more, like 20, 23, I think, or 24 even it's up to. It's crazy.
Wow. Oh, that's right. You did some as an age grouper too, right? Before you were pro, or no?
I think I have 3 as an age grouper too, or something. It's kind of crazy that I've got this many of them.
I think when I first met you were like in 19, you had done, I forgot how many you did that year, but it was like, I'm looking at this going.
I did 5. I did 5 in 2018. Yeah.
Yeah. In 2018, you did 5 Ironmans. I'm like, what the hell? Who is this kid? You were nuts. Hey, so it must have been fun for you in Oceanside to go head to head with your boy Lionel, because you guys have done some training together. Obviously, you guys have a lot of history. Lionel beat you by about a minute there. But even, sometimes when you have a race where somebody really wins and you get second, it's not that bad.
Yeah, I should say, like, it's funny, like, other than myself, there's no one else I would have wanted to win that race. Obviously, I wanted to win the race myself, but if it couldn't be me, I'd be like, cool, that's Lionel. And if I hadn't been there, I would have been like elated for Lionel's performance. But of course, it's like, it's both. Like, I'm super happy he won that, but I was also like, oh man, I got to get the better of him. How did I let him get the better of me, And of course, it goes both ways. You win some, you lose some. And it actually was really good because, like, anytime I race him, we get the best out of each other. And actually, when you get second, when you're behind, like, I think it lights it lights a fire under my ass of like, okay, like, I got to get better. And in 1 minute's okay. Like, 1 minute's not, like, when you're like 4 minutes back, you're like, I got to do something because I know I'm off the curve. But I think even that was great because I had Singapore the next week. He beat me. And like, I got on the plane to Singapore, like, with a fire underneath my ass of like, I gotta freaking show up because, like, I'm pissed that Lionel beat me. Even though I'm happy for him, I'm still pissed that he beat me. And I know I've got it in me. So let's go show that I've got it in me,
Yeah. And then you had that great race at Singapore.
Yeah, exactly. And so And actually, it's Lionel just announced today he's going to do Ironman Penticton, and that's the Ironman I'm referring to. I was like, I gotta go race Lionel at Ironman Penticton, and here I am in Italy. I'm 10 time zones away.
Yeah, yeah, but you think about it, that if and I think Lionel's probably thinking of from this perspective, it's the last Penticton, right? This is going to last one,
Yeah.
and I'm sure as a Canadian guy, he wants to win that last Penticton. But you're talking, of course, it's 2 months from Kona, right? It's late August, and Kona now is a 26. So, recovering isn't that bad, but it's still a full Ironman. And I think sometimes people underestimate how much time it takes to recover from something like that.
For sure. And for him, it makes way more sense for him to do it because he's in the full Ironman boat.
Yes.
So he does that, and then he does Kona. I'm trying to race at the T1. I'm trying to race at the T100 distance. So like, it's a completely different equation,
So you're watching, I'm sure you watch the Olympics, and
Oh yeah,
you're looking at some of these guys you're going to be seeing them up close and personal. I mean, some of them you already have. You've seen Leo Berger, you've seen some of these guys, but there's some, now that the Olympics is over, I think there's going to be a few ITU athletes who are going to be making this move, if not this year, then next year to T100. Don't you think we'll see a lot of those guys moving to T100?
yeah, for sure. I think we'll probably see 4 or 5 really good guys. I think it would be about my guess.
Which means that the races get faster, which means the pace at the swim
gets faster,
even faster, right? And if it's still 20 guys, so when you're thinking about, when you're looking at it and going, these faster guys are coming over, do you try to mix in a full next year, or you try to stay the course and continue what you're doing?
Yeah, we'll see. I've in a lot of ways I've actually been quite impressed with what the Ironman series have been doing. Like, yes. I think it looks quite fun, and at some point, like within me, the full is still a big calling. And so at some point, like I'll say, money aside, everything aside, like if I just want to do a full, right. And if you really go after the Ironman Pro Series, then there's money behind it as well. And yeah, we'll see. And the PTO, I think, they've done a great job in some ways, and we've still got some other ways to grow, I think.
Right.
Like we're still figuring out some of the race venues and stuff like that. So we'll see. Honestly, anything's on the cards. Next year, I might say like, okay, this year I conserved and I stored my energy. So next year I might say I'm doing both. We'll see. I mean, I'm not going to say it's out of the question, or I might just pick one of them.
So we had Thomas Rodriguez went positive this week. And then last year we had Colin Chartier. And, it's funny because I'll talk to some guys and I'll say, yeah, I've been tested, every week I'm getting tested. And other guys saying, I haven't seen a tester forever. The hard part about racing and training is if you're thinking the other guys are cheating, it makes it really hard to stay motivated. I mean, I've always been one of those optimists who feels that, I think 99.9% of our folks are honest, and it's too small a sport. Like Colin Chartier is done, right? You make a mistake like that, your career is over.
Yeah.
When you guys talk among each other and after something like this happens, what's the reaction from you and the other pros?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because I agree. Like normally you want to just say like, okay, the sport's clean. And especially with Colin, I think Colin, for me, that was like kind of devastating. That one rocked me a lot more.
Yep.
But then I had to come and I just tried to be like, okay, it's just one bad apple out there. That's all it is. Everything's still good, even though you've got like some questions in your head,
Right.
But now we've got two big doping, things happen in 2 years. Like, I mean, you tell me, when was the last doping conviction before that? I think it was quite some time,
It's been a long time. I mean, that's why I've always felt, in the past, I used to say, hey, there's not, in cycling, especially in Europe, it made a lot of sense to me because a domestique makes 400K a year. And their options when they're coming from Belgium or some other countries are, what do I do if I'm not a college graduate? I'm going to work for the police. I'm going to be a farmer, or I'll take 400K and I'll take whatever drugs they tell me to take.
Yeah.
That made sense to me why that, but I never thought there was enough money in the sport for people to put themselves at risk like that. But there is more money in the sport now. There are more
Yeah.
opportunities.
Yeah, I guess I think I've been thinking about this, nonstop the last few days, just because obviously it just happened, and
Yeah,
it's with great power comes great responsibility, and I think in our sport you could say, or any sport you could say, with big money comes more
yeah,
responsibility, and it comes from all of us to keep the sport clean, regardless of what the rules are around doping, around drafting, around everything. Like it starts with small rules and it goes up to big rules. And like the sport, right? Sport's a made up thing. Sport is a made up thing, basically. Like a triathlon, whether it's T100, we decide the distances, we decide the draft zones, we
yep,
decide the start time, we decide how many people are on the start list, we decide everything.
right.
Same with chess, we decide how many pieces there are. Same with hockey, we decide how many players there are, and everything, and we decide how long the minutes, the quarters are, right, in hockey,
Right.
and everything. So like all the rules are essentially arbitrary, but every rule becomes important because without it, there is no game, there is no
Chaos.
sport. And so it's chaos, and now it's like, yeah, if you start thinking, it's just kind of a scary reality to think of, like, if all this money comes in, but we don't protect it and we don't protect the value of our sport, well, then it's actually worth nothing. Our sport is worth nothing without protecting it, even if there's tons of money. In my opinion, it's worth nothing.
And you think of it from a media perspective, we don't get a ton of mainstream media's coverage of the sport until somebody goes positive. Then that's something that becomes a bigger story. And especially for you guys with Colin, that's somebody, I'm assuming you probably trained with him. I know Lionel, it was like living at Lionel's place. So that's almost like a personal attack when somebody's doing that under your, basically, under your umbrella. He's part of your group, and this guy is stealing from you, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a small circle in our sport because you see all of the professionals at one race or another, and
Yeah.
I mean, I will say what's really interesting is, like, and it's weird to say this, but like I must have had 25 conversations with various pros after Ironman Texas, where Thomas ran 2:34, and
Yeah.
all of us said, what the
Doesn't smell right.
This doesn't smell right. Every single one of us said that. But of course, then you say, well, we got to believe it until there's anything else. But then, well, that also is the case. And guess where else I also had all those conversations? Every single person after Colin did that at Dallas was like, what the,
Yeah.
that was crazy. And so it's weird that when everyone thinks this, it's then sometimes getting confirmed, like,
Yeah.
and it's very rare. It's very rare that everyone thinks this. It's not like anytime there's a good result, everyone goes, oh, like there's maybe, I'm not going to lie, there's a few other instances over the past years. I think people have thought this.
Right.
Obviously, I'm not gonna say that. There's maybe one or two. There's not a lot, but it's not like every time someone has a good race, we go like, whoa, what the heck? But it's like, I don't know. It's like somehow we have a radar for something that just doesn't make any sense,
Yeah. When people have a performance, it just doesn't measure up to where you've seen them racing before. All of a sudden, they're doing something that's out of the ordinary. You can look at it and go, they just have the race of their life, or then you start questioning, and that's always a bummer, especially when you're a guy who's. And I remember back in the day talking to athletes who, there was always this thought of the guys up front are cheating, and they would be, they'd be further back, they'd be down out of the water, and then they're thinking the guys up front are drafting. The guys, when you're behind, you're always worried about what's going on. You want it to be fair. You're going to a race and you want it to be fair. You want it to be 20, you want to be a 20-meter draft rule. You want that stuff to be enforced, because then, if it comes down to the training you did, and then that works. But the hard part is you can't let that stuff get in your head when you're training, because it beats you up, right? It's self-defeating.
Yeah, exactly. Like you have to come and you have to believe the races are going to be fair and that the athletes are going to compete with integrity. And when it happens, it can shake that, and it can affect the motive. Like I have been, a little bit affected in my motivation from this
Absolutely.
because I'm just like, whoa, it is what I'm going up against, like fair. And of course, it's just a process. I'll come around and I'll be like, okay, it's fair.
Right.
But you actually have to believe it in your mind. You can't just say, oh, it's fair. Like, and when this comes, it's like, it's a blaring flag into the mind. And yeah, it's just a sad day. I mean, it's a sad day for our sport
Right.
anytime
So,
someone gets popped, I think.
so talk a little bit about Italy. This is a great. I mean, it's funny because there's more and more huge races in Europe. There's way more. Obviously, there's more T100 races in Europe, and that's not going to change. There'll probably more in Asia and UAE and things like that coming forward. So is that the reason to be over there in Italy, saying, listen, moving forward, there's going to be more big money races over here. I better have a base.
Yeah, exactly. Because I'll tell you, I've traveled all over the world for races, and for whatever reason, when you travel from the U.S. to Europe, the jet lag is just ferocious.
It's awful.
It just destroys you. It's like a week to get going.
Yeah.
And when you fly from Europe to the US, it's crazy. You feel amazing. Every time I fly back, every time I fly from Europe to the US, I go to bed, I fall asleep around 8, you wake up at 5 in the morning, and I'm like good to go. You don't have any jet lag.
Right.
And so the problem, like I find, is if you've got a bunch of races in Europe, like you can't travel back and forth too much because that alone, it makes you not competitive. And so basically I'm like, okay, how are we going to find a training base here, and of course, in a way it's a blessing. My fiance, she's got Italian heritage, so we've got her grandma out here in Italy. So it was like, okay, do I go to Girona where everyone else goes? Do
Right.
I go? I don't know. That's the main spot everyone seems to go to. Do I go to Font Remo? But I was like, well, we've got the Italian Nona there. We've got a house we can stay at. Like we've actually got almost everything. I've got open water. There's a 50-meter pool. There's, in my opinion, actually, I've been doing the best bike ride, and I spend other time in Europe. And in my opinion, it's the best bike riding in the world where I am right now because you've got everything. You've got flats, you've got hills, you've got rolling hills. Like Slovenia is the best bike riding ever because there's no traffic. It's gorgeous. The roads are smooth. It's really awesome. And then we're an hour and a half from the Venice airport, which flies direct pretty much to everywhere. So
That's
it's
perfect.
cool because yeah, I'm trying to think like next summer. It's looking already like I might be here for like 2 months.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so yeah, 2 months. And so I'm getting it all set up. I'm testing the riding routes. I'm testing the pool. Like even though I'm technically sort of on holiday, right? Obviously, it's not. I mean, it's not really holiday. This is actually going to be my biggest bike week of the whole year for my holiday vacation. But yeah, just testing everything and loving it too right now. And it's a great place to bring the baby, great place to bring the family, and obviously for me, that's super important in deciding like where a training camp is because
Sure.
like I can't do the old thing of okay, I'm going to Livigno and I'm staying in a 1-bedroom apartment and all I do is eat, sleep, and train. Like there have to be things for the family and there has to be support for the family as well. And so, yeah, it ticks all the boxes here.
Well, it's great too, is then you get Leo into some learning a little Italian. That'll be really fun for him.
Oh yeah, I mean, he's gonna be both. I think he's gonna learn Italian and Slovenian because Nona and Nona, she actually spent 6 months with us in the U.S. She came over
Yeah.
this winter, spent 6 months, and she actually doesnn't speak very much English, maybe 20 words of English. So she speaks to him all day in Slovenian and Italian. So he's gonna be golden.
That is awesome. That is so much fun. So when you look back on your career, what do you look back as your best race ever?
Oh gosh. Honestly, yeah. Uh, I don't know, to be honest. I guess it's hard to say. It's like what was, from an individual performance standpoint, I have to say my performance at St. George was the best race I've done. For sure. It was the best race I've done from, like, if you actually just analyze like the data, it was the best race I've done. Now, was it the most meaningful race I've done? No, I would say it wasn't. It was probably like being second at 70.3 Worlds behind Gustav.
Right.
Was probably the most meaningful performance. But also the most impactful performance on my life was when I won my first Ironman, for sure, hands down. Then I got sponsorships. Then I was like, I'm actually going to be in this sport as opposed to getting an office job. So that was Ironman Chattanooga in 2019. Yeah, we're going up on 5 years till that now as well. So that was when it was like, I'm now actually a professional. I now can make money doing this.
I can move out of my parents' basement.
Yeah, that actually didn't happen until I got second at 70.3 Worlds.
That is so cool.
But at least I could buy my own gas to get to the pool after 2019.
I mean, think about that. If PTO had not come in during COVID, there would be so many folks who, one, would be out of the sport. And two, I gotta believe, I don't know if Ironman would have stepped up with the Ironman World Series if PTO wasn't doing what they were doing. I just don't know if
I mean,
what do you think? I mean, my gut tells me if they didn't feel like, hey, we got to be competitive here, and competition is a good thing.
Exactly. I think it's classic economics, right? A monopoly is never a good thing for the customers. It's never a good thing for the customers, like, because they can charge whatever they want and they can do whatever they want. And so we no longer have a monopoly in our industry, and it's a great thing. And the interesting thing is it's pushing all three organizations, Challenge Family as well, but like,
yes,
like Ironman is doing a fantastic job with their pro series. Their pro coverage is amazing. Their Instagram account is amazing. Like, they've stepped up how they're promoting the pros big time. And I applaud them for that. Like, yeah, they were pushed because it's no longer a monopoly, but like, they've responded and they've adapted to it. And it's great to see.
Yeah, their coverage has been phenomenal. I mean, and again, like you said, the showcase of the pros is wonderful. And I think those guys love it too. I know, Steve Godwin and all the videographers over there, they're loving the fact that they're doing more coverage and more in up close and personal and all the rest of that. So you'll be doing Ibiza. Is that Ibiza the next? Yeah. Is Ibiza your next thing?
No, so I won't do that, because we were considering Ibiza is like 7 weeks. This time we're not really prepared or ready to stay over in Europe for 7 weeks. And so my next one will be Vegas. I'm 90% sure, because once again, then Ibiza is 3 weeks before Vegas. So it's just a travel thing. I either have to stay here all the time, or I travel to Ibiza and I travel home, but that travel with the race then jeopardizes St. Las Vegas. So
yeah, Lake Las Vegas that's a tough course, which is really good for you, right? Like,
yeah, that one I've got that one circled with my pen for me, So that's the hope, and then the grand final, and I think that's it. As I said, I've got the calling for the full Ironman, but it just doesn't make sense this year. Now, yeah, I kind of wish it made sense, because I'm like wanting to do it, but and I do want to be at Nice next year. Like, I do wish I was at Kona. And so I do want to try and find a way to be at Nice next year. Even if it just means you just do the one Ironman, you don't do the pro series, to be at I would love to be at the Ironman World Championships every year, and then maybe do the T100 and maybe do some 70.3s would be my ideal world. Now, that's much easier said than done.
I love it. Sam, congrats, man. Love the season you've had. There's every time I see you at these races, you're just in such a good mental state. You're in such a good, obviously you're flying physically, but you're happy, right? Even obviously things didn't go your way at T100 with bike issues, but you still had a great run, right? You still ran well. You could have pulled the plug. You could have said, okay, I'm not having my day, but it's like, okay, sometimes you get 100% out of whatever it is. And maybe I'm having a 70% race today, but I'm still going to get 100% out of it.
Yeah, exactly. It was quite funny there. I actually had like a brief moment where I was like, after the chain came off, and I'm like, I knew I had 0% chance of being on the podium, 0% chance after that happened. And I was like, I should just pull out. What's the point of being here? But after like 30 seconds, I was like, no, I'm going to finish. Like, I'm
Yeah.
going to do this. And then I was like, I don't have to go hard. I'll just jog the run. And then I got out on the run and I
He
was
felt
like,
great.
I was like, I got so competitive and I'm like, all right, there's 18th place. I got to get 18th place. I got to get 17th place. And I'm like, and you just forget and the crowd's cheering you on. And then I'm like, cool. And then of course you're so much more happy you finished the night you didn't finish, you know?
Yeah. If you pull the plug, you're like, oh God, you have to live with that, right?
Forever. Yeah.
Forever.
Finishing the race takes like 2 hours.
Right.
Not finishing the race, you deal with it for 2 months.
Well, plus look at all the, from a brand perspective, here's Sam Long, and here he is. Hey, I'm not having my best day because of the chain and that other crap. So I'm just gonna run my ass off here and smile and be happy. And these are all Sam Long fans, right? And then there's always, every time you're doing something, you're in London, there's somebody who doesn't know you who now is a fan because you finished.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because you finished the race with a smile on your face, even though you're not in the place, you're not in the podium.
Yeah, it was a funny experience because Sam Laidlow actually, he had like, when I started, he had lapped me on the run. He was a lap ahead of me.
Right.
And so at first, like, I'm a competitor and I'm an athlete. And so at first but I was running better than him.
Right.
At first I felt so awkward passing him because I'm like, he's winning the race. The camera's going to go on. I was like, I can't do it. So I spent the first 6Ks of the run actually like jogging because I was too afraid to pass him because I was like, I can't do it. I'm not getting on the TV. I'm in last place. I can't do it. But then I was like, wait, I'm still like racing. I still need to like do my thing. So then I finally like did pass him. And then they got the TV on me and I was like, get away. Like,
but you were encouraging Sam, come run with me, right? Yeah. But you know what? It's sort of like when we're watching track on TV and there's always those guys getting lapped and you're like, get out of the way. What are you doing? And you're thinking, I don't want to be that guy. I've already been lapped. Now I'm going to run by the guy who's winning the race. But
yeah, I'm like, it's not for me. But I was like, there's no other way for me to execute my own race. So anyways.
That was great. You did exactly the right thing. Sam, thank you for always being so generous with your time. Appreciate it. You should do after Vegas, just take a quick jaunt over to Kona. I'm sure they have day race registration. That won't be a problem. Just like show up Saturday morning, go, where do I sign up? I heard it was day of race. It shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, I'm sure if you put the good word in, then I can sign up.
I've got a lot of pull there. I'm sure that would be it. The nice thing when there's 20 guys in a race and you're like 19th or 20th out of the water, finding your bike is not a problem.
Nope, no problem whatsoever, let me tell you. And there's no age groupers in the race either. It's the last bike in transition. There's actually not a lot of people who can say they are the actual last person out of the water. Like I can now say that. I've done it twice. I've already done it actually 3 times this year. Like I bet no one's really ever done that.
The cool thing is you're able to look at it and go, you know what, if this is your typical race with 50, 60 pros in here, I'm 20 to 25. I'm right in that second pack with the other guys. So
perspective's just a funny thing because I tell you, even when I did the 70.3 races I did this year, like I had a bunch of pros be like, oh, you're going to be way so far back. And I looked them dead in the eye. I said, you watch, I'm going to come out in the water with you. And they looked at me like, yeah. And then I came out the water with them and they were like, it's just, and then guess what? If you put any of these guys in the pool, with any of these Olympians swimming the 1500, guess what? They'd look horrible, but they're great swimmers. It's all just degrees of excellence. And,
exactly.
My swimming excellence is low compared to Sam Laidlow and Aaron Royal and Alistair Brownlee, but I'm actually still a pretty darn good swimmer in the grand scheme of things.
The nice thing is when you do come out of the water, like when Aaron and Sam all come out, it's hard to identify who's who. You're like, oh God, this big clump comes out. You're not with a clump. You're like, here comes Sam.
Yeah, it's like The Graduate. It's that famous quote in The Graduate. I remember, where the lady's like, well, what do you want? And they're looking at the fish tank, and he goes, I just want to be different. And so I've always wanted to be different, and now I'm different. I come out the water on my own.
Oh, and the other thing is you've got your own clothing line with Zoot.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's great. It's called
The Dark Side. I love that.
Dark Side. Yeah, it's called The Dark Side.
Good for you, man. And I'm sure it's selling well.
I think so. I haven't because we just released it. Like it takes like 90
Oh, I
days to
know.
get the sales numbers, but I'm sure it's doing well. I most honestly, I just love you get to see the age. You create a community. The best thing is to see the community.
My favorite story still is St. George when your
Yeah.
dad was racing in your kit and people were like yelling at him, "You're way back."
Yeah, geez, tough day, Sam Long. Gustav and the guy who finished second, they finished like hours ago. Oh, wait, that was you who finished second.
That is the best. Sam, enjoy yourself in Italy, man, and we'll see you when you're back in town.
Great. Yeah, thank you so much, Bob.
Sam Long, always one of our favorite guys on the planet. Actually, our 5 year, we're going to make this our 5 year anniversary since we first met at Ironman 70.3 Nice, when he was a guy trying to figure out what do I do in this silly sport. And now look, number 3 in the world with a bullet. And hopefully by the end of the season, you're going to be number 1 and coming home with a big fat paycheck for Leo. Leo needs more diapers, my man.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And the fiance wants a G-Wagon, so better win it a few times.
Sam Long has been our guest, everybody. Again, Breakfast with Bob, our Not Quite Kona edition. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll catch you next time.